I know it's been a little bit, or maybe it hasn't, but I hope you guys haven't worried about me too much. It's been a really productive few days. I met someone, and he really helped me figure this thing out. He also helped me learn a few things that I wasn't aware of. Some things that scare the hell out of me. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you what happened since I last posted. I spent several days in GG, the store with the Mother's Day decorations, just getting my head together. You may have a hard time believing this, but I don't often have to attack people in my day-to-day life. Every now and again, you may have to bump chests with a rowdy customer at the sub shop, but I hadn't actually had to fight another human being since high school. The thought that I might have killed the guy was repugnant to me. I was afraid to move on to the next shop as well. What if I found another person like that? What if I found a whole tribe of them? The person who had slept below the shelves and prayed they would crush him seemed like worlds away from me, and I found that maybe I did want to keep living. After a few days of eating and feeling sorry for myself, I collected up the things that would come with me and stepped through the bathroom door again. I went back to my usual routine, but finding another person made me think. Was I the only one leaving marks? Was I the only one marking the stores in case I needed to find my way back? I looked around, but I never found anything beyond the usual graffiti or vandalism. Rude words scrawled on the door by the bathroom, sometimes in English and sometimes not. I also found hearts with initials, catchphrases, the usual things that children do. It meant nothing until I saw something different in store KK. I'd been traveling slower, really looking for signs of other people, and that's when I found the bulletin board. I knew something was different when I walked into KK. The shelves weren't full like the others had been. They weren't empty, not really, but they were sparse, and they looked picked over. Things were out of place, too. The store had furniture, and some of it had been arranged in a way that made me think people had been sleeping close for comfort. The ceiling tiles were hanging down, too, something I didn't like, and the music was nothing but harsh static. Also, there was a sign written on poster board in the front window. I blinked at it when I noticed, thinking it might be mine. Someone had scrawled a similar message on the other side, but the side that would only be seen by the people in the store was different. The writing was messy, scribbled with magic marker, but it was readable, and it filled me with hope that the crazy hermit might not be the norm. If you can read this, check the bulletin board in the break room. When I come back, I'll answer your message. It was like a bomb going off in my head, and I kicked myself for not looking before. How many break rooms had I been in? How many times had I used the microwave or opened the fridge to see what was inside? I had passed by the corkboard 1,000 times, but never once had I thought to read it. It would be things I had no interest in, things for employees, but it seemed now that might not be the case. I hurried behind the counter and went to check the board, finding a treasure trove of knowledge. Their name was Gail, and they'd pinned a good many things there. Rules for the DG. 1. Don't go outside. There's nothing out there. 2. The food runs out, so don't hog it all. 3. The food doesn't go bad, so don't worry about that. 4. Whatever you do, stays here. 5. Don't go into the ceiling. No one comes back from the ceiling. 6. Don't be afraid to leave. There's nothing for you here once it's gone. Another piece of paper had a picture of a dark creature that had been colored in with a crayon. The miasma, it was called. Don't let it see you or you'll die. Don't go into the ceiling or it'll get you. The last bit seemed to be a goodbye letter, and it was in the same handwriting as the others. I feel bad that I couldn't bury you properly, so let this serve as your memorial. Here lies Kenneth, Margot, Rudy, and Celine. They were the best crew anyone could have asked for, and I miss them every day. Kenneth, who was never late for work and always so full of adventure, lost when he went outside. Margot, so full of life and hope, lost to the thing that lives in the ceiling. Rudy, my son, who wanted more than his old man could give him, lost in the ceiling when he went to go get Margot. Celine, who always made sure we ate before she would, went through the door when I was too cowardly and hard-headed. Let this stand as their gravestone. Let this tell their tale. I hope to find Celine when I go through the door. I'm still scared. I'm still hard-headed. But the food won't last forever, and I have to do something. If Rudy is out there somewhere, then I'd rather die trying to find him than starve to death in this place. To whoever reads this, don't be afraid to go through the door, and I hope to see you on the other side. Gail Thornton, Assistant Manager of the Dollar General Beyond Store, 4891. I didn't know whether I should leave anything or not. This looked like a memorial more than a notice board, but if Gail came back here, I wanted him to know that someone else was out there. Paper was pretty easy to come by, ditto pens, and I scribbled a hasty introduction before pressing it to the surface with a pushpin. It looked lame beside Gail's words, but it was the best I had. I ate a little of what was left and left my mark before moving on. When I traveled now, besides leaving marks, I always checked the bulletin boards. Sometimes there were messages from Gail, but mostly there weren't. Sometimes there were other messages, though. Usually it was people looking for people, or looking for people who were lost. Some of the bulletin boards looked like the messy walls of rest stops, and two that I saw a lot were someone looking for a boy named Jacob, and someone looking for a dog named Buddy. Looking for my grandson, Jacob, 5 years old, blue shirt, blue jean shorts, Skechers light-up shoes. If you see him, keep him safe. He liked mac and cheese. Disappeared when he went to the bathroom on accident. Border collie named Buddy, black and white with some brown, blue bandana around neck. Very sweet, good service dog. Would love to see him again. The former made my blood run cold, and the more I tried to put it out of my mind, the more it stuck. Jacob, the name the old man had screamed as he lay bleeding. Was he Jacob? Was he the one looking for Jacob? I didn't know, but it didn't matter either. I couldn't get back to him, and I had no clue where his grandson was regardless. I would leave notes of my own, letting them know that I was leaving the letters if they came across them, and telling them a little about the places I could remember. It was a lot like having a pen pal, except you were never sure whether they were getting your letters, and you had no way to get letters back from them. In that respect, I guess it was more like sending messages in a bottle. It went on like that for a while, but when I came to BBB, I found out that someone had seen one of my messages and left a response. Dear Alphabet Man, very clever. I like your ingenuity. I'm glad you found the bulletin boards and have figured out a little bit about this place. Hopefully we can find each other someday. It would be nice to see a friendly face. Gail. I was thrilled. Finally someone was responding back to me. I had felt a little guilty about not trying to communicate with the old man, but this made me feel a little bit better. If we could get together, we could share knowledge. If we could meet, then maybe we could figure this out. I kept going, each new store hoping to find Gail, but each new store seemed to find me a couple of steps behind him. He was leaving messages, leaving answers to old messages sometimes too, but I never seemed to catch him. Gail and I were moving through this space differently, it seemed, and Gail was better at it than I was. Gail, I came to believe, could move backwards as well as forwards. 2 Alphabet Man. Saw your mark, the one labeled K. Be careful if you find yourself there again. Sometimes there are shadows there that like people a little too much. Gail. 2 Alphabet Man. I thought I had gone to the hermit store for a minute, but I see this may be where you began your journey. Try not to destroy any more of them. They aren't as infinite as you might believe. Gail. To the Alphabet Man. I found your stovetop in a place called SS. Hope the eggs were good, and thanks for leaving me some. Gail. This went on for 3 or 4 more trips before I found the message I was looking for. JJJ, the spot I had found myself in, looked very different from the other stores I'd been to. It looked picked clean, every shelf emptied and bare. Someone had collected a pile of things from the store and attempted to burn the door. It smelled like they'd used lighter fluid to start, and the ceiling tiles by the door had fallen as they charred and left a wide, gaping maw above. The door, however, was none the worse for wear. I skirted the edge of the ceiling hole and made my way towards the break room. I didn't expect to find anything, but I was surprised to find the break room still intact. On the board was a message written on the back of a charred newspaper. "Alphabet Man, I hate to leave you in a place like this, but if you keep your current path, you should be here in a couple of days. Stay here for 2 sleeps. There's food in the back as well as water. And if I haven't made it here by then, it means something has happened and you should move on. With any luck, we'll meet up in 2 days' time. Looking forward to seeing you. Gail." I read the message a few times, not sure if I wanted to stay here or not. This place was creepy, to be sure, but the chance to meet Gail was something that I couldn't pass up. I checked on the food he had mentioned and found several days' worth of water and non-perishable items that someone had stuck in the back. There was no sign of whoever had set the fire, and I hoped that I had the place to myself. I dragged some bedding and food to the break room, feeling that I'd rather hide in there than in the open, and settled in for the next couple of days. I kept the door to the break room closed, and if anyone moved out there, I didn't hear it the first night. I mostly rested the next day, glad for the opportunity to do so. I had been going straight for a long time, resting when I was ready to fall down, and it was nice to get a little downtime. I wished it was somewhere a little nicer, but even this place told me things I didn't know. The doors, it seemed, were very resilient, but that made me wonder about Gail's story. He said that Kenneth had gone out of those doors, and I wondered how such a thing was possible. The doors seemed unmovable, and the longer I thought about it, the more I couldn't wait to hear his story when he got here. As I settled in for the second night, though, I heard something groan from the main floor and huddled deeper under my blankets. It was the exact same sound I had heard as I lay under the shelves, and as I listened to it move through the bones of the store, I realized I'd trapped myself in my pursuit for safety. If it came in here after me, I'd have no way to escape, but if I could make it to the bathroom, I could escape and touch base with Gail some other time. He would understand, especially if this was the miasma, and I pushed the blankets away as I crept towards the door. I could hear it moving on the other side of the store, and as I opened the door, I prayed it wouldn't squeak. If it made a noise, it was unnoticed by the creature, and I prepared to make a break for it. I looked around the door frame, and I felt my ambition drain away as I caught sight of the creature, and I knew terror. It was huge, its shadowy form stooped over, and it looked like nothing I had ever seen. It was darkness, a living fog bank of midnight, and as my teeth threatened to clack, I glanced at the bathroom and tried to steel myself for a run. That's when I saw something that pushed my apprehension away and filled me with renewed drive. Over by the bathroom, peeking around the side of the alcove, was a person in a red vest with a salt and pepper crew cut. He saw me too, and as he nodded his head, telling me to come here, he tossed something towards the back of the store. The bottle burst with a loud pop, and the creature growled like a mudslide. It lunged towards the back, slamming into the back wall, and I took my chance and ran. It heard me then, turning its ponderous form as it tried to give chase, but I was out of reach. Gail grabbed my wrist as we lunged through the bathroom door, and the thing was mere inches behind us. As we lay outside the bathroom, the new Dollar General a pleasant sight after the burnt-out husk we'd come from, the man smiled and offered me a hand. "It's nice to meet you properly, Alphabet Man. I'm Gail, but I suspect you already figured that out."
You're still here. I thought you might be. Thanks for joining me for tonight's story. If your insatiable appetite for horror knows no bounds, might I suggest one of our playlists, or one of our previous stories in the archive? There should be one appearing at the end of the story any minute now. And of course, if you're not subscribed, why not go ahead and hit that subscribe button? Maybe hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the spooky things that we do here. If you prefer your horror a little more analog, you can always pick up one of my books. There's a link below to my latest, and it'll take you to all the great things that I've posted on Amazon. For my book lovers in the audience, I always suggest coming on down to Patreon so you can become part of my ghostly reader tier and get a book anytime I write one, which is usually about twice a year. Speaking of my patrons, let's go ahead and thank them, shall we? Thanks to Unicorn Hollow for being our spooky ghost contributor. Thanks to Janet and Lady Vengeance for being our spooky skeleton tier contributors. Thanks to Hi Stacy, Winter, Xaronan, Emily Coltsfoot, Stephanie Carrington, Marianne Schuler, Tyler Parker, and Jennifer Damron for being our ghostly reader tier contributors. Thanks, everyone. We just couldn't do the show without you. If you think you might like to support the show in a more monetary fashion, come on down to Patreon. I have many tiers. I'm sure you'll find one that suits you best. I always recommend the Ghostly Reader tier since you get a signed book anytime I write one on your doorstep. But I have many tiers, and again, I'm sure you'll find one to suit you. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.